On a quiet Thursday evening, Lena felt that something small and invisible was about to change her life, though she did not know it yet. The house was calm, wrapped in the soft orange light of sunset. The kitchen windows were open, and a cool breeze moved the white curtains back and forth. Everything looked peaceful. Everything looked normal. But peace can be fragile, and normal can hide the beginning of a storm. Lena stood at the kitchen counter, slicing vegetables for dinner. She liked routines. They made her feel steady. 3 years ago, when she married Daniel, she stepped into a life that already had a history. He was a widower, raising his son Aiden alone after losing his first wife. Lena had known from the beginning that loving Daniel meant respecting the space his late wife still held in their home. Pictures were still on the hallway wall. Old memories lived in small corners of every room. Lena never tried to erase them. She believed love did not need to compete. Her relationship with Aiden had always been careful and gentle. He was 16. Now, tall, quiet, and thoughtful. He was polite to her, always saying thank you, always helping when asked, but there was a distance between them that never fully closed. Lena understood. She never pushed. She was not his mother. She did not want to replace anyone. She only wanted to be someone he could trust. That evening, Aiden rushed into the kitchen, grabbing an apple from the fruit bowl. "Practice," he said quickly. "I'll be late. Drive safe." Lena replied with a warm smile. He nodded, distracted, and hurried out. The front door shut with a light thud. A moment later, she heard his car engine start and fade down the street. She exhaled slowly and went back to cutting vegetables. A few minutes passed, then she heard a vibration on the counter behind her. It buzzed once. Then again she turned. Around Aiden's phone was lying near the sink. She frowned slightly. He never forgot his phone. Teenagers rarely did. It buzzed again, sliding a little against the marble surface. Lena wiped her hands on a towel and looked at the screen without touching it. She told herself she would only check if it was important. Maybe a teammate needed something. Maybe he would come back for it. The screen lit up again. Her heart skipped. It was a message preview. The sender's name was saved as just one letter. L, the message read. "I can't keep lying to Dad. I think she deserves to know." Lena froze. The words felt sharp, even though they were simple. She stared at the glowing screen, her thoughts racing faster than her heartbeat. Lying to Dad, she deserves to know. Who was she? Her fingers hovered above the phone, but she did not unlock it. She had always believed in privacy. Trust was important, but trust suddenly felt fragile. The phone buzzed again. Another message from L. "Please don't make me carry this alone." Lena's chest tightened. The air in the kitchen felt heavier. Carry? What alone? Her mind began to build questions faster than she could control them. Was Aiden in trouble? Was he hiding something dangerous? Was he protecting someone? Or was this about Daniel? She did not want to jump to conclusions, but her heart had already started whispering fears she could not silence. She placed the phone back exactly where it had been, as if nothing had happened. Her hands were trembling now. She pressed them against the counter to steady herself. Daniel would be home soon. She tried to focus on dinner again, but her thoughts kept circling back to the message. Lying to Dad, she deserves to know. Did Aiden know something about Daniel? Lena had always trusted her husband. Daniel was kind, gentle, and patient. He had been broken by grief when she met him. It had taken him a long time to open his heart again. Lena had felt honored when he chose her. She had believed in their love completely. But lately, there had been small changes. Daniel worked later than usual. He smiled at his phone sometimes, then quickly locked the screen. He seemed distracted during conversations. When Lena asked if everything was okay, he always said yes. She had believed him. Now doubt crept into her thoughts like a slow shadow. The front door opened an hour later. Daniel walked in, loosening his tie. "Something smells good," he called out warmly. Lena turned to face him, forcing a calm smile. "Just pasta." He stepped into the kitchen and kissed her forehead, the way he always did. His touch felt familiar, comforting. But tonight she searched his face more carefully. His eyes seemed tired. There was a small tension in his jaw. "How was your day?" he asked. "Fine," she answered softly. She wanted to say more. She wanted to ask directly. But she wasn't sure what she was asking. Dinner was quiet. Daniel talked about work. Lena nodded and listened, but her mind was elsewhere. Aiden still hadn't realized he forgot his phone. Or maybe he had and chose not to come back. After dinner, Daniel went upstairs to shower. Lena remained at the table, staring at the hallway. She felt caught between two choices: ignore what she saw or face it. Ignoring it would be easier. But easier did not mean right. She stood up slowly and walked to the counter where the phone still lay. The screen was dark now, silent, innocent. She picked it up this time, holding it carefully. Her reflection stared back at her on the black screen, uncertain. Lips pressed tight. Before she could change her mind, the phone vibrated again. In. Her hand dot another message from Elle. "I'm scared she'll hate me." Lena's stomach dropped. Scared she hate me. It felt personal now. Too personal. She locked the phone without opening it and set it back down. She could not cross that line, not yet. Instead, she walked to the living room and sat on the couch, her thoughts spinning. If Aiden was involved in something serious, she needed to help him. But if this was about Daniel, that was different. That meant her marriage might not be as strong as she believed. She remembered the early days with Daniel. How careful he had been, how he once told her, "I don't ever want to hurt someone I love again." He had said it with such honesty that she trusted him completely. Could he really be lying? Or was Aiden hiding something else entirely? The sound of Daniel's footsteps coming down the stairs made her heart race. He sat beside her, relaxed, unaware of the storm in her mind. "You seem quiet tonight," he said gently. "Just tired," she replied. He placed his arm around her shoulders. She leaned into him automatically, but her thoughts were loud and restless. Upstairs? Water pipes clicked softly as the house settled. Outside, the sky turned dark blue dot. Lena knew one thing for sure. Whatever Aiden was hiding, it was heavy enough to make him afraid, heavy enough to involve her. She glanced toward the kitchen again. The phone lay there like a silent witness. For the first time in her marriage. Lena felt the ground beneath her shift slightly. Not enough to fall, not yet. But enough to make her question what she thought was solid. She did not know the full truth. She did not know who Elle was. She did not know if the secret belonged to her stepson, her husband, or all of them. But she knew the life she believed was steady had just cracked open. And once a crack appears, it rarely disappears on its own. The morning arrived with a heaviness that Lena could feel pressing down on her chest. The sunlight streamed weakly through the kitchen blinds, creating lines across the table where Aiden sat quietly, his breakfast untouched. His eyes stared at the plate distant, like he was somewhere far away, somewhere that Lena couldn't reach. She watched him for a long moment, realizing that the boy who seemed so grown up in his appearance was still just a child carrying a burden too big for him. The messages she had seen the night before kept repeating in her mind, each word making her heart ache. "I can't keep lying to Dad. I think she deserves to know. Please don't make me carry this alone. I'm scared she'll hate me." Lena wondered how long he had been holding this inside, protecting both his father and her, without anyone realizing the weight he carried. Lena moved silently around the kitchen, making a pot of coffee. She tried to act as if everything was normal, as if the sun hadn't risen on a new tension in their house. But normal was gone. The air felt thick, full of unspoken truths. She wanted to talk to Aiden, but she didn't want to force him. Knew the delicate line between showing care and pushing someone away. Instead, she made breakfast and left a cup of juice on the table for him, hoping it would speak for her when words failed. She remembered the first time she met him, how shy. He had been hiding behind Daniel's legs, uncertain of what to expect from this new woman in his life. Back then, Lena had made a silent promise to never betray his trust. But today, trust itself felt fragile, like glass teetering on the edge of breaking. After a while, she decided she couldn't wait any longer. She would approach him, but gently, carefully, without forcing him into words he wasn't ready to speak. Lena followed him to the backyard where he had gone to sit on the small wooden porch steps, looking up at the sky. The clouds were pale and thin, moving slowly, unaware of the tension below. She sat beside him quietly, letting the silence stretch for a few moments, allowing him to feel that she was there without needing to speak first. The boy turned his head slightly, but didn't acknowledge her. Lena let him breathe, let him exist, without pressure. Finally, she spoke, her voice soft and steady, careful not to sound accusatory or intrusive. "You don't have to protect anyone alone," she said. The words floated between them, gentle, calm, like a soft hand reaching out. Aiden stiffened. His jaw tightened, and he looked at her with a mixture of fear and confusion. He had been so careful, carrying the truth in silence, weighing it against every action, every word. He had been trying to shield his father. Shield her, shield the fragile piece of the family. Lena realized in that moment how much he had grown, how much strength he had gathered, and how lonely he must have felt. A long pause followed. The wind moved the trees, sending soft rustles through the yard. But no words came from Aiden. His fingers fiddled with the edge of the porch wood, tapping lightly, a nervous rhythm. Lena waited patiently, knowing that when a child's heart was weighed down by secrets, rushing them would only make it worse. And then, slowly, almost trembling, he spoke. "It's not what you think," he said, voice low, almost breaking. Lena turned to him, her expression open, patient, waiting. His eyes were wet, unsure, but honest. That single sentence, quiet and defensive, carried all the fear he had been holding. The truth came out in pieces, raw and unpolished, spilling like water from a cracked jug. Daniel had been communicating with someone from his past, someone he had loved long before Lena entered his life. At first it had been innocent, just memories, just messages that reminded him of simpler times. But slowly it had taken a space in his life that shouldn't have been there, pulling his attention and emotions in a direction that Aiden had noticed and feared. The boy had observed, silently and carefully, how his father's laughter sometimes changed when he read certain messages. How he sometimes paused, smiled faintly at the phone screen, and then quickly put it away. Aiden hadn't wanted to alarm. Lena hadn't wanted to cause pain, but he couldn't bear to keep it secret any longer. "I told him to stop," Aiden admitted, voice small and trembling. "I told him it would hurt you. I didn't want to lie, but I didn't want anyone to get hurt either." The boy looked at Lena, eyes pleading, searching for understanding. He was seeking reassurance, a sign that the person he trusted would not turn away, that she would not see him as a betrayer. Lena felt a rush of emotions, pain, sorrow, understanding, love, and heartbreak all at once. She realized that Aiden hadn't been hiding betrayal. He had been protecting her, protecting the fragile fabric of their family, carrying a weight that wasn't meant for a child. Her heart ached for him. She reached out slowly and placed her hand on his shoulder. Flinched slightly, the tension in his body making her ache for him even more. "You've been very brave," she whispered. "It's braver than you realize." He turned his gaze to the sky again, tears now slipping unnoticed down his cheeks. Lena didn't rush him to speak again. She let him be, understanding that honesty often came in its own time, at its own pace. For the first time, Lena realized that the secret she had discovered wasn't meant to destroy her family. It was meant to expose the cracks they had been ignoring. Daniel hadn't committed a physical betrayal, but the emotional distance he had allowed to grow was real, and Aiden had felt it keenly. Lena understood that sometimes children notice. Things adults believe they can hide. So they watch, they feel, and they carry the truth in ways that leave scars invisible to grown-up eyes. And here was Aiden, a boy only 16. Managing a complex adult situation with more care than many adults could muster. She decided to keep her feelings steady, not letting panic or anger slip into her voice. "We will get through this," she said gently. "You don't have to do it alone anymore." The boy looked at her then, and she saw a mixture of relief and apprehension. Relief because he no longer had to bear the burden in secret, and apprehension because the future, though uncertain, was about to demand honesty from everyone involved. Lena's mind wandered to Daniel. How would he feel when confronted? Would he see this as an accusation, a challenge, or a plea for truth? Lena had learned in her life that confronting someone with honesty required both courage and gentleness. She needed to protect Aiden's heart while also preparing for the adult conversation that would follow. The tension in the house, once invisible, was now undeniable, stretching across every corner, waiting to be addressed. She went inside and brewed tea, placing a warm cup beside Aiden as he sat on the steps. He looked at it, then at her, a small nod acknowledging the gesture. It was a quiet moment of connection, simple and fleeting, but it meant the world. Lena knew that moments like these built trust, slowly repairing the cracks that had formed without her notice. And she understood that patience, empathy, and calm words were more powerful than accusations or anger. Hours passed in silence, punctuated only by the soft rustling of leaves and distant car noises. Aiden finally spoke again, hesitantly, carefully, choosing words that reflected his understanding of the adult world, yet revealed his own vulnerability. "I didn't want to hurt anyone," he said softly. Lena nodded, squeezing his hand gently, a silent message that his bravery had not gone unnoticed. "You didn't," she replied. "You've been protecting everyone because you care." Something very rare. The day progressed slowly, and Lena watched Aiden carefully. Every movement he made, every glance he stole toward the door, spoke of his fear and confusion. She realized that this day, this revelation, was not the end. It was a beginning of understanding, of honesty, and of emotional growth for all of them. And she knew, deep in her heart, that the next steps would require courage from everyone involved, not just Aiden. As evening approached, Lena began to prepare dinner again, her thoughts full of careful strategies. She would not confront Daniel, yet not in anger, not in panic. She needed to plan, to find the right moment, to protect the boy who had been carrying the secret, and to open the path for honesty between her and her husband. She remembered the promises she had made to herself when she married Daniel, to love him, respect his past, and protect the fragile balance of their family. And now those promises were being tested in ways she could never have anticipated. The sun began to set, casting long shadows across the yard where Aiden still lingered. Lena went outside again, sitting beside him, offering nothing but her presence. He leaned slightly into her, seeking reassurance, and she held his hand lightly. They did not speak much because words were heavy, but silence filled with empathy and understanding became their bridge. In that quiet companionship, Lena realized something profound. The secret had not destroyed their family. Instead, it had revealed the love, courage, and complexity within it. Waiting to be acknowledged and nurtured, night fell, and the house settled into a stillness that felt both fragile and comforting. Lena knew the difficult conversations were yet to come. Daniel's reaction, the explanation, the honesties were challenges ahead, but for the first time she also felt a sense of hope. Aiden had chosen courage over silence, honesty over fear, and that choice had illuminated the path forward. She understood that the family's strength would not come from avoiding difficult truths, but from facing them together with empathy, patience, and unwavering care. The evening arrived with a tension that Lena could feel in every corner of the house. The sun had set, leaving a soft gray light filtering through the curtains. The kitchen smelled faintly of the dinner she had prepared, but her appetite had long vanished. She sat at the table, hands folded, staring at the empty chair across from her. Daniel would be home soon, and she knew the conversation that was coming could change everything. She had spent hours thinking about it, weighing every word, planning how to approach him without anger, without blame. But she also knew that no plan could fully prepare her for the truth he might reveal. When Daniel finally came in, he moved slowly, carrying the tired weight of the day on his shoulders. His tie was loosened and his hair was slightly disheveled. There was a hesitation in his step, almost as if he sensed the gravity in the air, though he did not yet know it. Lena watched him carefully, noting the small things, the way he paused at the door, the slight tremor in his hands. He looked at her with a faint smile, an attempt at normalcy, but she could see through it. She had learned to read him, and tonight, there was more to read than just the surface. "Dinner's ready," she said softly, her voice steady but calm. Daniel nodded and sat down. They both took a moment before speaking, the silence thick, filled with unspoken questions. Lena wanted to start gently, to guide him toward honesty rather than confrontation. "Is there something you need to tell me?" she asked finally. Her words were quiet, almost tender, but they carried a weight that could not be ignored. Daniel's shoulders slumped. For a moment, he looked like a man who had been running from himself. His eyes met hers, searching, uncertain, afraid. He opened his mouth, then closed it again, as though choosing carefully which words could bridge the space between them. Finally he spoke, his voice low, tinged with regret and exhaustion. "I never meant to hurt you," he said. "I never wanted to do anything to damage what we have." Lena nodded, encouraging him without pushing. She had to hear the truth, even if it was painful. Daniel took a deep breath, and the story poured out in fragments, sometimes halting, sometimes flowing. He spoke of reconnecting with someone from his past, someone he had loved long before Lena entered his life. At first, it had been innocent, just messages, just shared memories, but over time, it had taken on a weight he hadn't realized. He admitted that he had let the past creep into his present, that his attention and emotions had shifted in ways that were unfair to both Lena and Aiden. As he spoke, Lena listened carefully, feeling the emotions in his voice. She noted the honesty, the regret, the vulnerability. He had not crossed physical boundaries, had not betrayed her in the traditional sense. But the emotional distance he had allowed to grow had been real. Aiden had noticed, and that had prompted the messages Lena had seen the night before. Boy had been carrying his father's mistakes silently, trying to protect everyone, including her. Lena felt a mix of emotions, pain for the breach of trust, compassion for Aiden, and a deep understanding of Daniel's humanity. When Daniel finished speaking, there was a long silence. Neither of them moved. The air was thick, but it felt lighter than it had before. Lena realized that honesty, even when painful, could be a balm. She reached across the table and touched his hand lightly. "Thank you for telling me," she said. "It's not easy, but it's the first step." Daniel's eyes softened, and a small, relieved smile appeared. It was the first sign that this conversation could lead to something better rather than destruction. Later that night, Lena went to check on Aiden. The boy had been waiting, unsure, anxious about what would happen next. He looked up when she entered his room, and she could see the mixture of fear and hope in his eyes. Lena sat beside him and gently said, "You don't have to carry our mistakes anymore. You've done enough." Aiden's shoulders relaxed slightly, and he leaned into her touch. Lena realized how heavy the burden had been for him, how much courage it had taken to reveal the truth even indirectly. Over the following days, the family began this slow process of healing. Daniel ended all communication with the past, choosing to focus fully on the present and the life he had built with Lena and Aiden. Conversations became deeper, more honest, and sometimes difficult, but each one strengthened the bonds that had been quietly fraying. Lena noticed small changes in Daniel, more attentive, more present, more aware of the emotional currents in the household. And she saw Aiden beginning to relax, feeling safe enough to be himself without fear of carrying secrets alone. Counseling sessions were added to their routine, not out of desperation, but out of a desire to rebuild trust intentionally. Lena learned that forgiveness was not about ignoring mistakes, but about understanding, empathy, and conscious choice. Daniel discovered that admitting errors and facing emotions openly did not weaken love. It strengthened it. Aiden observed, learned, and began to communicate more openly, feeling that his voice mattered, that his perspective was valued. One evening, Lena found herself in the living room alone, reflecting on the journey of the past. Few days, the house, once tense with unspoken truths, now carried a quieter, more secure energy. The small acts of honesty, of openness, of mutual respect had shifted the family dynamic. Lena understood that this change had not come from a single conversation or revelation, but from a continuous commitment to honesty, care, and connection. The following morning, Lena joined Aiden for breakfast. He smiled at her, a genuine, relaxed smile, and she felt a warmth in her chest she hadn't realized she needed. It was a simple moment, unremarkable to an outside observer, but for them it was profound. Trust had been rebuilt, slowly, and each day now offered opportunities to reinforce it. Lena realized that secrets, while sometimes dangerous, could also reveal the resilience of love when approached with empathy and patience. Over the weeks, family routines returned, but with new depth. These shared meals, laughter, and quiet evenings. Together with more intentionality, Daniel made a conscious effort to remain present, to listen, to engage. Aiden, once burdened and silent, began participating in family conversations with a sense of security he had not felt before. Lena witnessed these changes and felt a deep gratitude, not only for the honesty that had surfaced, but for the courage it had taken each of them to face the truth. The secret that had threatened to destabilize them had instead created a turning point. It exposed vulnerabilities, yes, but also illuminated the strength they possessed when facing challenges together. Lena recognized that love was not about perfection or unbroken trust. It was about commitment, communication, and the willingness to repair when cracks appeared. She saw in Daniel and Aiden reflections of her own capacity for empathy, patience, and understanding. As the days turned into weeks, Lena noticed subtle transformations in their home. The way Daniel looked at her, more fully present, more attuned to her emotions. The way Aiden moved through the house, less guarded, more open. Even small routines like cooking together or sharing stories from the day carried new significance. The family had learned that vulnerability could be a bridge rather than a fracture. That courage was not only for adults but also for the children who often bore invisible burdens. One evening, Lena and Daniel found themselves alone on the porch, watching the stars emerge in the night sky. The air was cool, carrying the scent of blooming flowers. They did not speak immediately, letting the calm settle between them. Finally, Daniel reached for her hand, holding it gently. "I realize now," he said softly, "how close we were to losing something precious. I will never take this family for granted again." Lena squeezed his hand, feeling the truth of his words. It was not just a promise, it was a choice. They were making together a commitment to presence, honesty, and love. Meanwhile, Aiden slept peacefully upstairs, no longer burdened by the weight of unspoken secrets. Lena knew that the boy had grown through this experience, learning that courage, honesty, and love could coexist even in the most difficult circumstances. She understood that the family's strength was not in avoiding mistakes, but in facing them together, in navigating the complexities of human emotion with patience and care. Months later, the memory of the messages that had sparked this revelation had faded into a distant, instructive moment. Lena remembered the fear she had felt, the uncertainty, and the tension. But she also remembered the triumph of truth, the courage of Aiden, the honesty of Daniel, and the way love had been strengthened through adversity. Their family was not perfect, but it was resilient. It was alive, and that was more than enough. In the quiet moments, Lena often reflected on what had been revealed and what had been learned. The secret had forced them all to confront uncomfortable truths, but it had also opened the door to deeper understanding and connection. She realized that family was not just about shared blood or legal ties. It was about trust, support, and the willingness to face life's challenges together. Love, she understood, was most powerful when it was tested, most meaningful when it survived trials with honesty and compassion. Through the months that followed, Lena, Daniel, and Aiden continued to rebuild their family day by day, conversation by conversation, act of kindness by act of kindness. Every small gesture became significant. Every moment of honesty, a building block. They laughed together, argued, reconciled, and grew stronger.